Today's phone-in show revolves around Edu, Arsenal sporting director and the man in charge of delivering the deals between now and the end of the January transfer window. That is, if indeed he can deliver them. Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys for another episode of what is our Arsenal phone-in show. I promised that I would do one of these, and so with the interest from you guys this morning in wanting one, I'm hoping that plenty of you are going to join me in discussing this topic, which, as I mentioned at the start of the show, is about Edu Gaspar. He has been named the 2023 Best Director, and yet finds himself seemingly under a lot of scrutiny from sections of the fan base. My question for you today is that pressure deserved? Does he deserve to be under pressure? Is there any pressure anyway that truly exists either from the owners or from a majority of the fans? And what is it that he needs to ultimately do this window to deliver realistically a successful January window? And what is the expectations of Edu Gaspar on this club moving forward? If you would like to get involved in the phone-in show, the link to do that is in today's chat box. You can see it. I'm also going to put it into the description of today's video as well, though I realize now I've not done that. So I'll do that very briefly. If you want to refresh in about 30 seconds time, you'll be able to see that link pop up. In fact, it should be there now. But it is indeed in the chat box if you want to get involved. Of course, while we wait for the phones to start ringing, I'll be tackling plenty of your comments in the comment section as best as I can, whilst we wait for some other callers. What tends to happen with these is that it's a little slow, it gets going, people join, and then by the end, I'm kind of batting away people. So let's wait and see how today's phone-in show goes. If you want to get involved, you need to be over the age of 18. You need to have a webcam turned on and a good quiet place to record with a strong internet connection. This is, of course, as I like to say, a family show, so please bear that in mind if you're coming on to the show. Let's jump into the chat box while we await some of our potential listeners to the chat box. I'm just going to pin this comment so people know how indeed they can join. There we go. Lovely stuff. How did Bakary Lasagna, Chris Chan, John G, Junior in the chat as well, Matt Tomo, Abe, MIL Reaction, we've got Damien, we've got Moss, we've got Melanie, NSW, Temi, Amira, Mike, we've got Tom, we've got Matt G and MM as well. Thank you so much, guys, for tuning in. Temi here says zero pressure since the owners are motivated enough to win trophies. Temi, come on the show, mate. I'd love to hear your thoughts on why you think there is no pressure on Edu. We're going to bring in our first caller. It is MIL Reaction, who's already joined us in the chat box. How you doing, James? You good? You well, mate? How you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing good, Tom. I tried to join other phone shows, but I was unable because I'm busy with work and such. But yeah, how about you?
Yeah, not bad, mate. Not too shabby. What is it that's encouraged you, if you like, to jump into the... Can I just quickly... Is there a TV on in your background? I just don't want to get done for copyright, that's all.
Yeah.
There is. Do you
Yeah.
mind turning it off? Otherwise, it may affect the copyright. That's all I'm worried about.
All right, hold on. Let me switch off the camera.
You'll do, mate. I'll just get ML Reaction back in the show once you sorted out the TV. It's always that risk you've got to take, you know. It was very quiet in the background, so I think it'll be fine. But you never want to take those chances. Abe says, what could a man do if there is nothing available? We could only get what fits our budget and our vision as well, which I think is a fair point. Let's bring MIL back here, mate. Tell me, Edu, is he under pressure?
Yes, he's under pressure, but it's undeserving pressure.
Okay, tell me why.
Given his recent record and what he has done, I think it's undeserving pressure. But basically, what I am seeing from the different perspective is that we need more because we failed to win the title last season. So because of that, that creates more pressure to say, hey, we missed a striker. If we did have a striker, we could have scored 20 plus goals, which would give us the league. When truly and in fact, that is a probability. That's not a fact to say, hey, if we get a 20 plus goal a season striker, we're guaranteed to win the league. We're up against a machine that is called Man City. A machine. They're like the Terminators. No matter what you do, they will always be back. So because of that, yes, continue. Yes, so because of that, it creates the pressure for us as fans to say, all we need to do is throw money at it, throw money at it. If we get the striker, that will guarantee us the league. No, that doesn't guarantee us the league because we're up against Man City. They have been relentless for the last 6 seasons. They only failed to win the title once to Liverpool, and that was because of what? I think it was a 5 point or a 3 point difference. Which other team in the Premier League have you seen been that relentless back to back and so consecutively?
Yeah, I mean, Liverpool are the only team that got close, to trying to match Man City. It's very difficult to see consistently another team being as successful, but there's obviously a lot of allegations pointed towards Man City at the same time. So Arsenal aren't only up against, a very tough competitor, but they're also up against a team that allegedly have got a lot of question
Yes.
marks about their operations as well. What would you say to the people that think that he should be sacked then?
All right, saying that Arteta should be sacked.
No, Edu.
Oh, who would you replace him with? That's my only question. Who would you replace him with? Because
It's a
so
very
far
difficult question,
he
isn't it?
has stepped up.
We know about managers, don't we? We know we'd say we replace this manager with this manager, but technical directors and sporting directors is much more difficult to say who do you replace them with.
Yes, it is. Because it's not a guarantee. It's like a roll of the dice when you're trying to replace a technical director. You will look at his record and say, hey, he's the one that signs Messi when he was young and bring him to Barcelona. So he has to be a good technical director. But when you bring him to Arsenal, there are more bad deals than actual good ones. Like look at the Raul Seneti appointments. Look at that. We were saying also he was a good appointment. He was going to do this and he was going to do that and help us. And in the end, it didn't work out. So it's a roll of the dice.
Yeah, I think that when the question comes as to why should Edu lose his job when obviously he just won director of 2023, his recruitment of delivering Arteta's vision has got us into a position where when Arteta took over we were in 11th place. Now we've moved from there to a title race in 4 full seasons. It's difficult, isn't it, to see why you'd have the argument to move him on, but
Yes.
people seem to think that way, James. So I guess we'll have to see how he does. Any final thoughts before we move on?
Oh yes. Before we move on, I'm not sure on the Fox, but I recently saw that I don't think we will be able to make any major deals in January because we're still at a loss. The club is still facing a loss. It's a grand total. I think it was 199 million. So because of that, I'm pretty sure we might be unable to sign anyone in the January period. So we'll have to wait till summer to get any significant transfer in.
Yeah, it's going to be really, really difficult for Arsenal to do any business during this window because, as you say, the restrictions that they've got and the situation the club finds itself in is challenging. But James, it's been an absolute pleasure to speak to you. Thank you for your support in the chat box and always tuning in. It is very much appreciated.
Yes, thank you, Tom. I hope you have a great day.
Thanks, James. Much appreciate his time on the show today. And please make sure you're showing plenty of love in the chat box. We're going to bring in our next caller, which is Tom. Great name, Tom. First of all, thank you for joining me. How you doing?
Hi, Tom. Great name as well.
Thanks, mate. Tell me what's made you want to call in on this one then, because obviously Edu transfers is quite a volatile subject. Do you think that there is pressure on Edu as sporting director?
Well, to be honest, I've been watching a lot of your shows lately. A lot of points that have been spoken about, and it gets me a lot of thinking, especially the transfers, the youth. Even the discussion regarding the youth playing the youth, and I'll try to work Wi-Fi. Well, let's talk about the transfers first.
Sure.
I've read, I've heard, or like the guy previous said before me, but Arsenal are actually lost in the last 3 years the 195 in losses in the last 3 years.
I won't be able to tell you the exact figures myself, but
I've Yeah, I've heard. I got the figures. It was quite interesting. I follow the Terrace,
Yes, Football
and
Terrace.
he had this show regarding Arsenal and the fact that people believe that we are rich and we're capable of buying, and it actually showed that why we're actually are very close to FFP or the
Yeah.
sustainability rules. And the crazy thing is regarding transfers is when we came in the beginning of January, we obviously had the three defeats and a lot of injuries, and I think it was a lot of panic because Zinchenko was Zinchenko was bad. It was a bit of a poor form, and then he was injured, and then Kivio was not performing, and everybody was talking about having a defender. And the crazy thing is, by the time we played Nottingham Forest at the end of January, we could be potential uh, having the full squad
Mm.
minus Timber, who, according to reports now, is coming back next
Well,
month.
training could be
Well, training
training.
next month, but I mean, a lot of people say that he'll be aiming for the beginning of March.
Yeah.
So and obviously before that poor form in the beginning of January, before those three defeats, and a lot of people said, I mean, the striker situation is not something new. It's something that we even you spoke about it in the summer, and we've spoken about having an attacking player, Kudus, um, which obviously now once I understand the FFP, I understand why we didn't buy it. Why we
Yeah.
didn't probably had time, ability to get someone, and but no one was talking about uh, no one talking about a defender issue. Nobody was talking about even the midfield was people mostly seem okay. It was really a story of what happened to Partey because there was conversation about him selling. But as long as we kept Partey, nobody was arguing that we had such requirement in defense and midfield. And I think it's more generated as a panic buys than toward January because of the form and the injuries than
Mm.
actual needs that we would consider. I mean, imagine we didn't lose, even we didn't lose parties so long, or even the Zinchenko and Tomiyasu injuries. I don't think it will be in such volumes this requirements of players. So in the end of the day, so what I'm saying is that I think in the end of the day, I mean, the attack, the only real need we have, I assume, is at least for this season, is the attacking player.
Mm.
And
Well, I think there's more. I think that you can look at. Obviously, I think we need goals. I think that's been said. A striker that's going to take Arsenal to the next level. I don't think you're going to get that in January.
yeah, exactly. And by the way, the thing about the goals, I mean, we always come up with the stats that last season we scored the most goals we ever did without this, especially number nine. And it's not even that. You see it, you see it in past seasons. Manchester City before Haaland didn't have a prolific striker. Even Liverpool, they don't have a prolific number nine. I mean, even the closest they have is Nunez,
Yeah, of course.
and they've been sharing the goals. I think it's more of a style of play that defines the number of goals we have this season, as we're playing more compact, like you say, mostly. So I don't think the number nine, like people said that once Haaland will come in, then City will score 30, 40 goals more because that's what he brings. But it didn't happen. They don't score more goals. They score around the same goals. The only difference is the focus
Mm.
of who's scoring them.
Mm.
So instead of older playing players having 10, 15 goals, then Haaland takes 40 goals and the rest. So I don't think having that elite striker will suddenly give us I mean, even if we get a 30 goals striker, it doesn't add automatically 30 goals to
No,
our
it doesn't.
season.
It doesn't. You're right, and Liverpool are a really good example of that because they had Firmino, of course, and they've added Nunez, but he's certainly not scored, the goals that maybe some people thought that he might, and he's been playing in a multitude of positions from left through to the middle as well, and obviously coming on as an impact sub in certain games. They have got the benefit of Mohamed Salah, which is certainly something that shouldn't be overlooked.
Yeah,
Mane, of course, before that. But you're right. I think that there is something to be said about the fact that you can win a league, you can compete for a title with having a squad which shares the goals around. It's not just about one player scoring. And even when you look at Man City, yes, Erling Haaland has been a top scorer for them last season and will probably continue to do so. You look at the amount of goals last season that Julian Alvarez had. You look at the amount of goals that Foden gets. You look at the amount of goals that Kevin De Bruyne, of course, scores and Bernardo Silva scores. You need to share goals around, and that's important. But I suppose to bring it back to the question, Tom, is how does Edu's profile, the perception of Edu, and how he's sinned? Because I know there's a lot of people that aren't keen on him staying. Do you think that they're right to have him scrutinized, or is he getting too much flack?
first of all, I think, first of all, it's ridiculous. I mean, for the fact that you were basically owning the best director of the year. I mean, he won the award. It's like saying you want out Haaland because you think he doesn't score enough goals or he get injured, but you know he's the best. He's getting recognized by the footballing world, and I mean it's so for me it's crazy. I think it's more down to frustration, because as you said a lot, it's more down to his overperforming, him and Arteta as well. They both suffer from the same thing because how they overperformed last year and how the players they brought in are suddenly uh, have done so well, and now it just turns into expectation. And once they don't do the expectation, they seem washed up. Like look at Klopp. Klopp, I think it's a great example because last season basically everybody was writing him off when he was struggling, and he was talking about this 7-year itch he has with Dortmund. They gave the example of Dortmund that after 7 years he was losing his touch, and everybody was like, the expectation was so high on him that one bad season basically people write him off, and you see him this season, and I think the perfect example of how a system sometimes is better. It's more it's getting the right player than the shiny ones, because people remember. I mean, I remember I have a friend who's a Chelsea fan. I remember him laughing off at Liverpool for losing out the Caicedo and Levi and getting Endo, and look where Liverpool now. Well, look, Endo looks like one of the signing. Looks amazing. And
bargain signing. He looks very good, doesn't he? I mean, imagine if they had got Caicedo through the door. That would have been very.
Well, I mean, it's a mix. It's an interesting question because I've been always asking myself, because I think you talk about a lot about Brighton and how their player pan out, and how Caicedo seemingly looked because they had one good had like good year and a half, and he was one of the main guys, and the fact that it's more of a I wouldn't call it one season wonder, because I know that Caicedo have a lot of potential, but I don't think if Caicedo was brought into Liverpool, it would have been an instant upgrade on Endo, because I think Endo was brought in. First of all, he had a very good season in Stuttgart. People pretty don't understand it, but he was pretty good at the German league. I mean, and I think there's a misconception and around it, and I think that it just shows sometimes that people have to have to be a bit more understanding. The people who do this job have probably a bit more understanding when we are on situation
Hmm.
and and um and
Yeah, no, I do.
it's
I see where you're coming from, Tom, a lot. I think that there is something to be said about the empathy, might be going too far, but more of an understanding about where things are with Edu. But Tom, I really appreciate your point of view and jumping onto the show and sharing your views. Thank you, mate.
Thank you very much.
Really appreciate your time, Tom. Make sure you have Tom plenty of love in the chat box. Fantastic contribution. Let's bring in Rob to the conversation. How you doing, Rob? You good? You well?
Yeah, good morning from New Zealand.
How are you?
To you, Tom, and to all the Gooner talkers. Yeah, I'm not doing too bad. Not doing too bad. So hopefully sorting out my housing situation, and my dog's doing pretty well. So in the scheme of things, yeah, not too bad.
I'm really glad to hear that, mate. Thank you. Yeah, Edu is the topic, and I know that it's one that you obviously put in the morning show chat box. You were keen on the phone-in show about Edu and the perception of Edu. As I've mentioned a number of times already, he's won this award last season, the Golden Boy Awards, for being the best director. Is he underrated? Is he overrated? I mean, someone that's winning kind of and getting appreciation in the footballing world for what he's doing, and then still seemingly getting so much flack from his own supporters. It's a strange dynamic, is it not?
Well, definitely. I mean, I think the thing is that when in the title you've got, is he under he's getting flack, right? Because people on social media just like to complain about stuff. so at that level he's under pressure. But I think in reality you've got to look at who his employers are, right?
Mm.
The Cronkays, I'm sure, do not think, oh, do we need to replace Edu? I'm sure that they're pretty happy with. So he's been at the club, from what little research I'd done, for like 4.5 years under 2 different titles. I imagine that the roles are maybe not changed that much, but again, I don't know the technical detail of what the role involves, right? So it's hard. I think all of these people that are on social media that are giving him flack, I wonder how much they understand of what his actual job entails.
Sure.
I would imagine not much, right? So,
Well, it's always going to be limited, isn't it? I think obviously we go off face value and we understand that he's the guy that's leading transfer negotiation and has kind of the big say between the link between him and the board. But I would always argue that he is the guy that delivers Arteta's vision. So
yeah,
when we talk about kind of the players that we've signed and we say, well, Edu gets credit for this and Arteta gets credit for this or whatever, I think it's a little bit semantic, because I think that actually everyone has to agree on the deals that are done. But in the end, Arteta is the guy that is going to be at the face of the transfer front, because we aren't signing a player that Arteta doesn't want, are we?
no, but definitely not. Well, Arsenal aren't, thankfully, but then you look at like Chelsea or maybe Nottingham Forest, like those I think those sporting directors could be under pressure because they're spending all of this money. Chelsea somehow getting away with it, Nottingham Forest not so much at the moment. And they are not getting the results with the large amounts of money and the numbers of players that they're picking up. So I would say that those are under pressure. But I mean, this is the strange thing about Arsenal fans, is we, in the scheme of it, are getting the results compared to 4.5 years ago. We're progressing year on year, right? So I mean, I think it's an unrealistic expectation from Arsenal supporters. Sure, if say in a year or 2 years we drop down to 5th or 6th, drop out of the Champions League, still haven't got any trophies, then yeah, you have to look at kind of year on year that there isn't progression, there's regression. Then
Sure.
yeah, sure, I think then there's pressure, and rightly so. But I think that the Cronkays had a vision when they actually started spending money.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of shared vision that Edu and Arteta and the Cronkays have got, as a whole, between
Yeah.
all of them, they're realizing that vision. So I don't think he's under any pressure realistically. I think the only pressure I think the only way that maybe he's failing, perhaps it could be argued. I'm
Yeah.
not convinced of this, but it could be argued.
Mm.
That we don't sell well.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any question that we're probably in this financial position, and maybe I'm segueing for you here.
No. I think it's a good segue.
The reality that we are in this window, that we are probably not going to be able to buy any substantial, we're not going to be able to make any substantial signings. I would say one of the main reasons for that is that we haven't sold players on well enough.
Yeah.
Now, it could be argued that that isn't 100% Edu's fault, because
Sure.
he's
inherited a lot of the resources that are here.
Yeah, well, and he's having to sell on players that Arteta and him weren't in the roles when they were signed.
Yeah.
Like Pepe, Aubameyang, Lacazette. Yeah. A lot of those were players that were already at the club that Arteta didn't want. Potentially were bad eggs as well. So to be blamed for not being able to sell those on at decent prices, or any price in the case of three of them, that's questionable about whether that's really.
I think there is a good argument, Rob, that some of those players that we've listed should have been sold better. Like Leno, the money we got for him was, a pittance. It really, when you consider this is someone that was in his mid to late 20s, was moving to another Premier League club, was a German senior international, yes, was a number 2 at Arsenal, but the fact that he went for 3 million with add-ons rising to about 8 million in total is a pathetic amount of money, quite frankly. And this is coming from someone that has defended Edu a lot, but the Leno thing, I've never been able to get my head around why it was such a small amount of money. The Guendouzi one I have more of an understanding of, for sure. But yeah, the Mavropanos one was very low as well, and you consider what West Ham have now bought him for. There has been sales that there are certainly question marks over, and I hope that in the summer, where we've got players like Nketiah, like Nelson, like Ramsdale, if we make a loss on Aaron Ramsdale, that would be something really to be held against Edu as something that is a failure, because a year ago he was a starting Premier League player in a title race, an England international. So that was different. Paul says Torreira's situation was quite specialized because of the situation that he went through and the way in which he acted online as well, following the sad passing of his mother, of course, as well. And that did create a dynamic where only really Galatasaray were interested, and you don't tend to see big money deals done in that direction. So I think that's certainly something that's worth. And you raise a good point with the sales, Rob, in terms of that. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you look at if you look at the signings that we've made, that Edu's made, and we came to be selling those players, I think for the majority of them, we would make a profit right now. So I think you've got to say that those have been good signings. And I would also say that of the signings that have been made in each window, overall, I would say that they've strengthened the team. So I would say that in regards to what you're, I don't, as I said, don't know what the whole role involves, but in regards to purely the signings, then I think the signings that we've made are good, have been in each overall, have been in each window. They've improved the team.
Yeah.
So that's definitely a positive. I think that, we were talking whether you agree that Raya should have come in or not. I think that was a genius piece of business.
Oh, without question. Yeah.
We got him on loan rather than having to sign him. And
agreed.
I think that
Even the option's low, 27 million quid with 3
that's what I
million.
was going to say. Like, if we
Yeah.
were going to have had to bought him outright, it
Yeah.
would have been more than that. Surely. I mean, I
Well,
found
I don't know, but when you were talking about like Bayern being interested, Spurs were interested, I was thinking, well, Raya's going to go for 40 million plus. The fact that Arsenal have managed to get him for 27 plus through the 3 million loan move is again another 30-ish million pound deal that we've seen under Edu. Like Tomiyasu was 20, Ødegaard was 30, Zinchenko was about 30. Those deals that we've done, Timber was 38. I think, the deals we've done around that 30 million figure, the quality that we've been able to add for a figure that is in the current state of the market, not deemed to be a wildly expensive amount of money, is very good. Gabriel, I think, was 25, but I think Raul saying, he had more of a hand in that one, to be fair. But you look at those deals, you look at what we've added. Trossard at 21 to 27 million as well from Brighton, and he was practically a starter there. I know that he'd fell out with De Zerbi at that point, but still, again, very, very good pieces of business. You're right.
Yeah, and just the last point, I think the buying has been great. If between Edu and the negotiators, if he can up his game in regards to selling on players, as Reece Nelson, Nketiah, Ramsdale, if he goes, or even I can't see it happening, but even you've said in the past, like, you're not sure about Raya completing the deal. Not necessarily you personally, but like, is it going to happen?
Oh no, just what I've been told is that whenever I've asked about the option being activated, I'm told that's not been decided yet.
But I think
I very much think that it will get done.
Activate it and then sell him on for an extra 5 million or however much it would be in the market. Like, I think that's why it was a no-brainer and brilliant deal, because even if he didn't do that well, we're not going to lose money on it. Or either he doesn't do well, we pay the 3 mil as a loan and send him back. He does well, we want to keep him as number one. We've got a good deal. He does well, and we don't want to keep him as number one. We sell him on for more than 27 or the 30 in total. So as long as Edu can up his game with selling, Nketiah, Ramsdale, Reece Nelson, whoever else might go in the summer,
maybe, or even Zinchenko could be under pressure. Someone like that maybe would be interesting.
If he can up that, or I mean, ideally, if we could sell someone in this transfer window and get someone in as cover,
genius.
That would, then that would cement him. But in regards, just finishing off, in regards to the question, he isn't under any pressure from the Cronkays, and ultimately the Cronkays are his employer. I'm sure they're very happy in where we were when he came into the role and the progression year on year. And also another massive point is he seems really well liked by the players, he's got a great relationship with Arteta. In the doco, he seems like a nice guy, full of smiles, someone that you kind of want to work with. So
he is a very friendly man.
His employers, the Cronkays, I think would appreciate the job that he's done, and the people that work under him and around him, I think would look upon him as a decent employer himself.
Absolutely.
So I no pressure at all. It's just social media, the loudest tweet, and maybe I'm going to say it, the most ignorant view has the loudest tweet, you know. That's what I think.
Sometimes it does. That's the world we live in these days, sadly, Rob. But I really appreciate you jumping on and give us your thoughts. As always, my friend, it's good to speak to you.
Yeah, great to chat with you and great show. And yeah, look forward to listening to the other listeners as well.
Thanks, Rob. Appreciate your time, mate.
Right.
Speak soon.
Cheers, mate. Bye-bye.
Massive thank you to Rob. I'm plenty of love in the chat box, please. Let's bring Jay, who's been waiting very patiently. Jay, how you doing, mate? You good? You well?
Yeah, I'm doing fine. Can you hear me?
I can indeed. Clear and crisp, which is good.
Oh, that's nice. That's nice. Yeah.
Tell me where you're at with Edu, mate.
Okay. First of all, I have to ask you some questions. Okay. I want to be sure before I get into my points. Okay. So my first question is this. Did Arteta in his press conference say that there will be no transfers?
No.
He never said that.
He's never said that we won't be doing any business. No.
Okay. So that means I had a false information. Okay. And I don't want to mention his name, but I think okay, let me mention his name. I think he gave a false information. So I think that's confused a lot of Arsenal fans. So his name is Lee Ghana. I think you've heard of him before. Yeah, he said that Arteta said there will be no transfer. So I'm really confused. Yeah. So secondly,
as far as I'm aware, and I obviously cover every single presser, either in there or remotely as well. He said things like, "We're focusing on the players we have," and that he wants to obviously develop the players that we have at the club. So whenever he's asked about transfers, the often answer that he gives is, in fact, I think I did an entire article on what Arteta and Edu have said about their business. In fact, yeah, I can get you the exact quotes if you like. So on November 29th, he said, "We are really short at the back at the moment and we had to use the squad to make some changes. Perhaps changes could be coming, is what I wrote after that." So he said, "We're really short at the back and we had to use the squad to make some changes." On December 6th, he said, Edu said, to work for a football club like Arsenal is always busy, isn't it? You need to put in a lot of effort and energy and dedicate a lot of time. But of course, in January and the summer, it does intensify a bit. We are prepared. We have big people around the club to support me and the decisions. We always have our targets. It is important to be prepared for every single scenario. That is very important. On December 8th, Arteta said, "Let's see," when he was asked about transfers. "We are going to have to adapt. We have what we have right now. The January transfer window is coming up and we will have to assess where the squad is and the needs that we have. But at the moment, it is not something that we can change. We have to play all the games now throughout December in the best possible way to keep winning games." I'm going to keep going because I think you want the answers to this question. December 27th, he says, "At the moment, it is very difficult. We are really short. We have positions that we have been very exposed for in the last 6 weeks, and hopefully we're going to get players back. In what condition and when, that's the question mark as well, because we have some long-term injuries. But it is a very, very tricky market, that shifts very quickly, and it is quite unpredictable as well, and you have to be prepared. We will be prepared, and we will try to make the right calls if there is something that we can do to improve the squad, and that need appears when we cannot fulfill it with players that are here. We are always going to be open to do that because we want to be stronger." So I think that as a quote is a pretty strong one in answer to your question, where I think Arteta has said, yes, if there is the opportunity, if there is the potential to do something, they will. But no, he has never said outright at the moment, to this stage, no, we're not signing any players.
Okay, so basically, based on the FFP, definitely they have to sell some players before they can buy, some players. Yeah. And then who are you looking that they can sell? Maybe one person that you think they can sell?
It's a tough one because you've got for a sale to happen, A, you need a player that you're willing to let go of. B, you need a buying club to come in with an amount of money that is a reasonable figure to make that deal happen. And that's the problem. I mean, you look at the players like Nketiah, Nelson, Ramsdale, and Smith Rowe. I'd look at those as probably our most sellable assets at the moment. But there isn't anything in the way of either interest or a reasonable offer coming in for them. So I would say one of those four, but there isn't anything in the way of clubs moving in a direction to try and sign them at the moment. That could change between now and the end of the window, but there is nothing there. So, as you say, you're right. The only way Arsenal are going to invest money this window is if we bring in money, which doesn't seem to be very realistic at the moment. So the only other option is to sign somebody on loan. That would be the other option that Arsenal have. But at the moment, we've not seen too much in the way of rumours about a loan player yet. But if that does happen, I think it'll happen towards deadline day, to be honest.
Okay, so now back to Edu. Now I want to know, does Edu do the buying or the selling? Which one?
Does
Or
it
he
all.
does both? He does it all.
He's
Okay.
involved in all of it. With a team of people, he's involved with all of it, yeah.
Okay, so last summer, and before he bought Kai Havertz, right? The question is this: did you know about the FFP situation before he decided to buy Kai Havertz? Because you know Kai Havertz a lot of money.
Yeah.
Did he? Yeah, he knew about it. So, and especially, I was surprised that he bought Kai Havertz when his value dropped. I think he could have bought Kai Havertz at a much cheaper price. That is my opinion.
How?
No, because his value dropped.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
just want to know how he would have signed him, because the negotiations were that Arsenal initially went in with, I think, about 55. I think Arsenal. Hold on, let me find it. I think it was 55 million was the first bid. First bid of 55 million pounds was rejected. I think they had a second bid of 60 million also rejected, and then they eventually agreed on a deal at 65. So my question to you would be, how do you sign someone for cheaper than the club are willing to sell for?
No, I'm saying that I'm trying to say is that the negotiation has to do with the value. So if someone's value has dropped, there is no need for you to buy the person at an expensive price. That's my opinion.
How much did Chelsea sign him for?
I think it was 70 something million or something, 75 or something.
75.8, I think it's what it was.
Yes.
So his value has dropped, and they did sign him for less than what Chelsea bought him for. If you're arguing that they could have signed him for less than what they did, I'd answer that by saying I don't know how, when they rejected two lower offers for Havertz.
Okay, yeah, you told me about initial offers. I knew about the initial offers, but my point is this: if like someone's value has dropped and there's an FFP situation, we definitely have to find someone and another alternative. That's what I'm trying to say. Because if the FFP had no problem, we could buy him, but we realized that they knew that they had a problem with the FFP. So, what you call profits or sustainability rules, whatever, they had an issue, a financial issue. So I think they shouldn't have risked buying Havertz.
Right. So every target that Arsenal have, obviously, Edu is basically, as we've talked about, exercising Mikel Arteta's vision for the team. So it effectively, in really basic terms, be Arteta and Edu will meet with other people at the club about the players that they want to go and sign in the summer. Arteta's vision for what he sees of his squad will be discussed. Edu and those scouts around him might try to find the players that match the profile of player that Arteta is wanting, or of course Arteta might put a specific player up himself. If Havertz was a player that Arteta wanted, Edu and what he has done is he's gone out and signed the player that Arteta wanted in getting him. And also you think about the players like Rice, you think about Raya, and you think about Timber. Those four players that we signed were clearly players Arteta wanted. Edu's job was getting them within the realms of what we could spend. We bought Timber, Havertz, and Rice, and had those financial restrictions at the end of the window still, and that's why we obviously signed Raya on a loan deal with an option. So Edu managed to get that deal done as well, despite the fact that we would have struggled to buy Raya in that moment. So do you see what I'm saying? Edu is delivering what Arteta obviously wants in his team.
But as a sports director, too, you can give him advice, because let's say he wants to buy Havertz, you can say, no, Havertz is too expensive. Let's buy this player like Kudus or something. Like he can give or that's not his job.
Well, Kudus isn't the same player as Havertz, is he?
No, Kudus can play attacking midfield.
Right.
And Havertz is playing here.
Is he?
He can play it. I'm a Ghanaian, so I know he can play it.
Anywhere close to his best position, though. Like when you think about where he plays for Ghana, and where he plays for West Ham, or where he played for Ajax, he was playing in very forward-thinking roles.
Yes, definitely. But I'm saying that he's very versatile. So I know him as I'm a Ghanaian. Yeah, so he can play that position if you put him. He's more versatile than Havertz, in my opinion. To me,
I think Havertz is being misused by Arteta. To be honest, I think that his best position is in a forward position rather than a midfield position. I don't think we're going to have a debate about whether or not Kudus would have been better. I think Kudus has had a better season so far than Havertz has for West Ham, for sure. I just think that if Arteta wanted a player in the mold of Havertz. That's why they went for Havertz and why they didn't go for Kudus. So again, I'd point the finger more at Arteta for Havertz than I would Edu, if that makes sense.
Okay. Okay, but I'm just saying that did they have any alternative to tell him? Not necessarily Kudus, but did he suggest any other alternative?
I don't know.
You don't know. Okay.
No.
Okay, I think my solution.
Mason Mount was the priority, but Mason Mount wanted to go to Manchester United, so they instead moved to Havertz after Mason Mount preferred Man United.
Okay, how much were they going to buy Mason Mount for? How much were they going to buy him for, Mason Mount?
I think it was upwards of 50 million. Let me have a look.
Yeah.
He went for 55 million. Yeah.
Okay.
So what they first bid for Havertz is what they sold.
Okay. So I'll end it here. I want to give you like a suggestion. Maybe you might take into consideration. Probably, I'm sure there was some of the teams in Arsenal might be watching right now. So here's the suggestion before I leave. I want to make a quick suggestion. Yeah. Okay.
What's
So first of all, there are some strikers that are very cheap right now. Brobbey is very cheap. I think it's around 17 million. Guirassy is like 15 million. Brobbey from Ajax. I don't know whether he's still for sale.
Brobbey. Yes, sorry.
Yes.
Yeah.
Then Guirassy too is also like 15 million. So I think we can buy
I don't
cheaper.
think Guirassy is 15 million anymore. I think that release clause was just in this window. I will check that, but I think it was just this window that is released.
Okay. And if they buy him, if they can sell a player and buy him, the good thing about it is that when he's able to perform, definitely during the summer, definitely his value will grow up. So it's not a loss. And I think that we can sell someone like Nielsen to like Crystal Palace because they might be open to it. Yeah, if they can come in for him and use him. So these are some of the things that I'm suggesting right now. So I think we should look into it and see what we can do because we definitely need a striker.
I absolutely think that we do need to go for a striker as a next kind of the next Declan Rice type deal for sure. You know, I think that is the next level of investment. I don't think it necessarily needs to be a cheaper option just because they're available. I think that Brobbey is a really interesting shout. You know, he's got 11 goals in 17 games in the Eredivisie this season for Ajax, 4 assists in a very difficult season for Ajax as well. So he's certainly on the radar of young strikers out there. That is certainly a good shout. But is he going to really take Arsenal to a title next season? Because really thinking about it, like Arsenal, when they sign somebody, have got to next season. The expectation is again the title, and for a lot of people, it's going to be the title. For me, it'll be competing for the title for sure. Is Brobbey going to start over Gabriel Jesus? I don't know. I don't know if he will. So
no, but you see, we have to look into this injuries. We have to also look at when we get those players. Definitely, even they underperform, we can still sell them and still get some money. So it's not like it's not a total loss. So definitely, so we should just give it a shot. We never know because we never know the future. But what if they perform and we get a title? What happens? Then we become happy. So let's give the fans what they want. Let them get a striker if they can, and let them see what happens.
Yeah,
at least they try their best. Yeah.
It's those words, if they can, is the big question in this. And hopefully they can in the summer go and get that next level raise. I love that word from Killers Hon in the chat box, level raisers. That's what Arsenal need, is players that are going to go to that next level. Jay, thank you for tuning in. I hope you managed to give you answers to your questions and give you the time of day for it as well. So I appreciate you calling in.
I want to give a shout out to my WhatsApp group, Arsenal Faithfuls. We are in Ghana here. So yeah.
Brilliant.
And I had
I'm so sorry about what happened with the African Cup of Nations, man. That must have been emotional.
Yeah, but I heard that we could qualify still because I think there's
still hope, I think, isn't there? But it's just obviously very frustrating, isn't it, how the things ended in that last game. But my goodness,
definitely.
They're incredible. But Jay, thank you, and indeed,
shout
out.
I heard AFTV is coming to Ghana too, so I don't know whether you know about it.
Oh, I think they are going to Ghana, yeah. I don't know the details.
Definitely.
I don't know if Judges is going to be out there. I'll have to give him a shout and see if he is. But I don't know the details. I think Robbie will post something on AFTV for sure.
Okay, definitely. So thank you so much, and have a blessed day. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Jay. Massive appreciation to Jay for jumping on and answering some questions. There's a lot of people I can see now down in the queue. Just a heads up for those waiting. So just be patient, please. And I'll try and get you a running order of guests as soon as I can. But let's bring in Dinny, who's next on the list. Been waiting very patiently. Dinny, how you doing, mate? You good, you well?
Not bad, thanks, Tom. Yourself?
Yes, not bad, mate. Where are you joining us from?
I'm in the Lake District, Kendo.
Oh,
I've not.
really? Oh,
Yeah,
interesting. I used to visit every single year to the Lake District.
yeah,
Keswick is where I
man.
used to
Yeah,
stay
it's
pretty much
raining
every single
though.
year.
It's raining.
There you
It's
go.
not good.
I would be told, to be fair, if I am going to be really picky, some would say Kendall's not in the Lake District, you know.
You having a laugh?
So I'm just saying. I'm just saying. Some people would say
Oh,
it's
that's
not
it. I'm
quite.
out. That's it. I'm leaving. Leaving.
Don't leave me, Diddy. Don't leave. Tell me where you're at with Edu, mate.
I'm not gonna lie, Tom. Like when I hear when the fan base is hammering, putting so much pressure, saying that he could lose his job, it's laughable, to be
Really?
honest, for me, because I feel
Yeah.
like this guy, he's came in a club where it wasn't distraught, where we had no direction, and he's the one who. Well, him and Mikel, who've engineered us to be in this place where we even have hope of winning the league. We couldn't think about that like that a couple of years ago, and now as soon as you face a little bit of adversity or not everything's going to be great. As soon as there's a little bit of uncertainty, we turn into these I don't know, ungratefuls of saying, "Oh, that's it, pressure on him, send him out. We didn't win the league." Like, who is guaranteed the league besides Man City? No
Yeah.
one else. You know what I mean? Like, this guy is going pound for pound with a team where they could buy 100 million player and put him on the bench.
Yeah, I do.
He has to compete with that. Like, they can do that, and no one cares. But as soon as
I
you
guess
get
the
have
retort, Vinny, is that I guess the retort is Liverpool. You know, Liverpool will be the retort, who have won a Champions League and have won a Premier League title in the last six years or so. Klopp joined in 15. I think it was 15 he joined, and they've won a league title and a Champions League. So people would say, well, Man City have done this, but what would you say to people that would say, well, look at Jurgen Klopp and what he's done at Liverpool?
100% look at Jurgen Klopp. How many years has Jurgen Klopp been in a managerial position? And what does Jurgen Klopp got to do with what Edu does? You know what I mean? This guy, it's his first gig of being a manager. He's learning on the job, and him learning on the job is putting us in places where we could not even think about. We thought he was the guy to he's a stepping stone. But every single time when he has his team firing, when they've when like the players are on top form, we doing things that we didn't expect. Like, as much as we all wanted Rice, we didn't expect that we were gonna pull it off.
No,
We
and
thought,
beating Man
yeah,
City to it as well.
well,
And beating Man City to his signing as well.
that's what I'm trying to say. Exactly, things like that.
Mm.
And it's sad, man. Like I was saying even to actually one of my workmates, saying I love Arsenal, but the fans, I don't know, man. They kind of make me fall out of love with the team. Even listening to some of the, like even judges themselves. I know you're talking about it. Like even the guys,
My boy.
like I love them. I love AFTV. I watch them every single time, but it's the flip flopping of. One week everything is fine. Soon as we lose, that's it. We're not winning the league. Everybody's, and then that filters down to the Twitters. That filters down to the fan bases that on social media. And I don't think we need that up and down. Like, we have to understand who are we, where we are, what are we competing against, and what is realistic for. And yes, we're gonna make mistakes. Edu's made mistakes.
Why don't people have that view that you have there when you say? Because I'm I think we're both on the same page here. I agree with you. I think realistically, to expect Arsenal to beat Man City to the title at the start of the season, and if Arteta doesn't do that, or if Edu isn't able to bring in the players to do that, they should go. I think is an extreme view. Why do you think people have that view?
Oh.
It's a tough one, isn't it?
That's not an easy one, Tom. But the quick one, that's not quick one. The one I would say is, do you remember when we would be like back in the Arsene Wenger days, we would be flying high. As soon as we'd reach Jan, Feb, we'd dip down.
Yeah.
And we always had hope that, we top of the league. And then we dip down, and then we just filter down, and then Man United just goes and wins the league. It's that I feel like honestly, I think
Mm.
it's we got like trauma from it. As soon as we lose a game, we spiral out of like,
We are
oh my
very
god, it's happening,
PTSD as
it's
fans.
happening again. We
Yeah.
all think, oh crap, there we go again. As soon as we lose, like some of the theories people were having, we could have been if we had beaten this team. Now Man City is definitely gonna win everything.
Oh yeah,
It's
I
like
do that all the time, didn't he? I was staring at the table the other day, going, "If we'd have beaten Fulham and West Ham, we'd be 2 points clear at the top." It's human. We all do it, and it's incredibly
but
frustrating.
again, this is the team that chases down over leading by 8 points. What's 2 points gonna do? You
Oh,
know what I mean? Like,
to be fair, it's 6 more than we would have right now, and I would have taken that. That said, you're right. You know, we had a big lead last season. Maybe it suits us being chasers rather than being the ones being chased. But I guess we'll find out come the end of the season. Dinny, I have to say it's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you for somebody who lives near the Lake District, not quite inside it,
oh
but
come on, mate.
pleasure, mate. Thank you for
But,
tuning in, my friend.
cheers, brother. Next time.
Cheers, bud. Speak to you soon. Massive appreciation for Denny. I'm only messing. I'm pretty sure that Kendall is inside the Lake District. I've never been to Kendall, and I remember saying to my dad when I was a kid, because I used to go to the Lake District every single year. We stayed in Keswick, we stayed in Ambleside, we stayed in Grasmere. You know, it's a lovely place to go. I also went up with a couple of mates a couple of years ago and got stuck. I don't know for those that listen to the channel in the long term. I managed to pop 2 tires on one pothole near Scarfell Pike and was stranded for 6 hours whilst we had to wait to get the situation sorted out. So, but I was always told that Kendall doesn't. It's not quite there, but maybe I'm wrong. Denny's definitely offended by that, and I'm sorry. Anyone from Kendall, I really apologise. It's definitely inside it, I'm sure. Naveen joins us next. How you doing, Naveen? You good,
Hi,
Joel?
hi. Yeah, I'm well. How are you?
Not bad, mate. Not bad. Other than
Ah,
offending
okay.
everyone that lives in Kendall, I'm all good. Edu, tell me.
Yes. Okay. Well, let's understand Edu's role because
Mm,
2022 he is our sporting director, right?
mm.
And the roles of sporting director is obviously scouting network, transfer dealings, and then data analysis of the team. We have seen in his data analysis of the team in like those what you call it, all or nothing
Yep.
clips, right, where he would streamline our team to respect the talent of the squad. So he doesn't want to have passengers in the team. That's why he wants. And the thing I have with Edu, right, the gripe is that he doesn't market our players to be sold well. Do you notice? Because most of our players they leave based on what? Contracts termination, right?
Yeah.
And the thing is that when you do that, the players lose value, and then the club lose a player and value in it. We don't earn anything. As compared, like, people model Liverpool because I don't know how they do it, but they tend to market their fringe players very well,
Yes, they
and
sell
then
better than
and they
us.
sell better, like
Yeah.
I think they sold Solanke for like 35 or 40 million to Bournemouth. I don't know how they do that.
They sold
And at the
Benteke
time,
as well for like £30 million. It's a tough one, isn't it? Because like Arsenal historically, like before even Edu arrived,
yeah,
we weren't the best at selling. Like Edu
yeah,
arrived in I think 2019.
correct.
Before
Yeah,
he arrived, we sold Lucas Perez, who we bought for like 19 million for 3. We sold obviously the key signings that we think about are Oxlade Chamberlain going for big money.
yes.
Alex Iwobi, I
Iwobi.
think
Iwobi.
slightly after. Maybe that actually did come under the Raul Sanyehi
Yeah.
Edu part. I mean, but Chesney, who was a starting keeper, went to
And goes to
Juventus for like
Juventus.
16 million quid,
Not enough.
which is way below. Like Giroud, who's gone on to do great things, went for like 15 million quid.
Yeah, it's not enough.
Gabriel Palista went for less than 10 million pounds. Kieran
Yeah.
Gibbs went for like 5 million quid. Serge Gnabry went for a
Yes.
few million. So
Yeah,
it's
it's not
before
enough.
Edu, this problem has gone on a
Yeah.
long time at Arsenal. And you look at Liverpool and who they've sold. I mean, they sold Fabinho, who wasn't in this. I know he's gone to Saudi, so that's probably a big reason, but like 40 odd million
But
quid.
Coutinho, he sold for a lot of money.
Fabinho went from 100 million to a crazy Barcelona, is what happened
Yeah.
there.
I mean, let's discuss. Okay, let's discuss also the good things about Edu. Okay, because he has access to the Brazilian talent, and because they speak the same language, and it's easier to convince the younger Brazilians to come and join us. Not saying that every Brazilian is a good player in like Willian or all the how do I say? I'm sure there's other Brazilian players that didn't do so well for us. But I mean, this is just an example. And the thing is that when you have that kind of luxury, you can convince those Brazilians to come and join us. It does help the team. And you just have to look at yourself. You like Martinelli, you want to see the next Martinelli, you have to support Edu. And then he also has a good relationship with the Kroenkes and Arteta, our manager. So the thing is that this sporting director, right, he has to bridge the gap between owners and managers and fans alike. And that's the role that is quite difficult to play out with Edu.
Okay.
Yeah. And just to point out is that if we think that he's under pressure now, we have to look back during our, I think like 3 seasons ago where we didn't do so well. I think we were losing 13 games. And that time people were calling, under Arteta to be sacked and all that.
Right.
I mean, if we are convinced at that time Edu was doing such a bad job, right? I think like that was the only time where you see that only Arteta could have gotten a sack or Edu could have gotten sack or that kind of situations. Now, if you expect these kind of things to happen, it's very not going to happen at all. Yeah, the only
But
kind
what
of
would
pressure.
you say to people that say we're Arsenal Football Club? It should happen.
We are Arsenal Football Club. We should happen. I mean, of course, we are a big club and all that. But the thing is that we wouldn't be in this position without people like Edu and Arteta. Without the signings of Zinchenko or Gabriel Jesus, right, we wouldn't be contesting for the title last season and playing better football than we had 3 seasons ago. In fact, I even watched Arsenal during the 04-03 season. I actually think we played better football last season as compared to
Really?
03.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
a
really.
big shout, that is.
I mean, we
I
didn't have a
appreciate
world-class
the bravery, but that's a big shout.
the build-up play was a lot better. I'm serious. The build-up play was a lot better.
There's no.
But the thing is that we didn't
season.
have a power striker in Henry. I mean, if you have that, anything could have happened, right? So yeah, that's the issue with us. We just need a world-class striker to lift us. And the thing is that in this January window, I'm not sure whether we may see it because the prices of strikers tend to rise up. Mid-season.
Striker's not happening this window. But the only striker I can see, and it is like 1,000,000 to 1, is if these Benzema things, with apparently he's coming out today that he wants to temporarily leave. If he was to take a serious pay cut and was open to it, that's the only one I can see that's worth doing, really.
Yeah.
But and I would, by the way, for the records, and I've said this before, if he was available for a reasonable wage, I would happily have him for 6 months. I think you'd be mad to turn that down, to be honest, for 6 months. But the idea that that's going to happen, I still think is incredibly far-fetched. So we'll have to wait and see.
If let's say we don't get a striker, would you be happy with a midfielder as cover for Partey in terms of Onana?
Who would you go for?
I mean, if I would
like a low need.
Yeah, if you don't see a striker, would you be satisfied with just a midfielder in Onana?
That word satisfied is an interesting one. It's subjective, isn't it? Because in my head, I'm thinking, well, the only thing I think Arsenal can do this window is sign someone on loan.
Okay.
They are going to sign someone on loan. It's not going to be a striker because I don't think there's any striker bar Benzema if he's available that you can get on loan that's good enough. So then you look to midfield, you look to defence. Where are we shorter? Well, Partey's meant to be coming back. So it depends on how much you want to risk his fitness record for the rest of the season when he does come back. He'll be back sooner than Timber will. I think if you need to sign a player on loan, I think the defense is actually more in need of the depth.
Really? Defense
for a temporary signing, because you've got Rice, you've got Jorginho, El Neni obviously will be coming back. I don't want to see him playing necessarily, because I think that we've got very bare bones. But the other question obviously is which midfielder is going to come in that's going to be better than Jorginho on loan?
Oh yeah. I mean, I would still prefer Onana, and like what you say, I would still prefer at least a striker on loan. Yeah,
you prefer a striker than a midfielder?
I mean, I would prefer both, but if we have to pick one or the other, I think I would prefer the midfielder, because let's be frank here. Okay, last season we still played well with Jesus. Okay, it's just that the defending midfield in Partey wasn't there to bridge the gap between defense to midfield to strike.
Mm,
And the thing is that we need that kind of bridge. Yeah.
I am going to put a poll into the chat box, and the poll is going to be: what would you rather our final loan be? A striker, a midfielder, a defender? Please bear in mind what would be realistic. What would be realistic?
I would want
a loan.
Mbappe. Yeah.
I'd love that, but it's not going to happen. Naveen, it's been an absolute pleasure as always to speak with you. Thank you for joining me, mate.
Thank you.
See you soon. Massive thanks to Naveen. I've left that poll in the chat box. You can get voting on that as we take our last few callers. Jordan is up next. Give him time to prepare himself. There we go. How you doing, Jordan?
Tom, what's going on, man? Thanks.
Yeah, it's going good, mate. It's going good. Thank you for calling in. What made you want to tune in?
Oh man, I just think that there's an overestimation of how much we're going to get right, and I think that if you were to give me what's up?
What do you mean by an overestimation of what we think we will get right?
Oh, I'm going to get killed by the standards merchants out there, but I just think
Mate, I take them on every week. Don't worry about it.
I just think that if you were to give me the on every level algorithmically of like what we've gotten right in terms of signings and what we've gotten wrong and the money we've spent on those, because you've made a good point of the big signings for the most part have done really well, and it's okay if you take a Brighton model of we're going to fail fast with cheaper options. That I would take that for the next 5 years. If you look at the last 5 years and you're like, hey, you're going to get just about that same amount of things right going forward, would you take that over the next 5 years? I would. And you don't get you don't go from where we were to where we are without getting a lot more right than wrong. And the jury's out on a couple things for sure. But the idea that if people go out and list all the players that they think have been a bad signing, whether it's a bad deal or have not panned out quality wise, sure. Every team is going to have a podcast going on right now listing a bunch of players that didn't work out. It's part of the game. You're gambling. And the point is to make, the net positive, is to make the net positive signings that end up being a net positive. And along the way, there's going to be scorched earth and people that fall off along the way that weren't great signings. And that's just part of it. And I just think that there's overestimation of how much we're going to get right because there are things that we didn't get right. That isn't a stick to beat Edu it. That's just part of how this goes.
No, I think it's really well summed up. So you think there's an expectation of perfection in a way, and that we can't afford to make any mistakes. Otherwise, it's curtains effectively for some.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't want to I don't want to have no standards. I don't want to do the opposite.
No, of course not.
And I think that for the first time I've felt a little bit with the Havertz deal and with the Raya, not the deal in itself. I think the deal is amazing and actually a real notch on the belt of Edu. It's like one of the most amazing signings. If it didn't create the goalkeeper dynamic that I think we can agree has been, either at best a neutral, most likely a little bit of a negative, just as far as the dynamic is concerned.
Yeah, but that's fine to say. Like I could hear it in your voice, Jordan, like the resistance to almost raise these points, because I feel like we've got into something of a dynamic as Arsenal fans of being on a side almost, and that we either feel like we have to say Arteta's the guy. He's perfect. He can do no wrong. And you're in that camp. And if you say anything wrong, you're a flip-flop against, if you say anything critical, you're a flip-flop. And on the other side, people feel as though they've camped themselves in the corner of Arteta can do no right. He's not the guy to take us forwards. And therefore, I can never say anything positive about him. Ultimately, I like to think that at the channel, we're in the middle of that. We can criticize what's worthy of being criticized. And I think you raised a fair point about the Havertz deal. There's a lot of question marks about that at the moment. And the goalkeeping situation, you're right to point out that the Raya deal in itself, in closed analysis, was a great bit of business by Edu. Arteta wanted him. Edu's tasked with going and getting him with the restrictions that we've got, and he master planned that, to get that deal done. And not only that, but the option in the end of it, as we discussed with Rob earlier, at £27 million is an incredibly cheap valuation, I think, of a player of his quality at his age as a goalkeeper as well. And I think, there's something to be said potentially on the youth side when we have these debates about the youth and about selling as well. I think there's opportunities we might have missed to give some youth players a chance. And I think there are opportunities where we could have sold players better as well. But they are what I look to as the things I think we can improve. But and Arteta's in-game management, I'd probably point to as something else too. But they are dwarfed by the progression that we have made under this manager, under this regime, under this ownership since they took full control in 2018. And that's not a popular thing to praise the owners in particular, any more so than it is Arteta and Edu. But we've progressed an incredibly amount of time. So I've said this, Jordan. I think that the best analogy is that you have an end goal as a club. And for me, the end goal is for Arsenal to be competing and winning titles for a sustained period. It's not just a case of bringing in a manager to have a 3-year project, win a title, leave us as a shambles. I want to see sustained success at Arsenal Football Club. And I think that the manager, the director, and the owners that we have right now have us on a track going in the direction where it's taking us closer to that end goal. Do you think that we're ever likely to get into a position where we may see an alternative that gets us there faster? I know that's a toughie, but that's the question.
That is a tough one, and even that is absolutely a tough one. And talking about Arteta's game management, we can talk about that in a sec. But I also think that it really kills me. It's so unfortunate that of the players that have had long-term injuries, that Timber and Partey have been out, because I think we're viewing all of this, if Arteta is sitting home at night this summer, dreaming up exactly the chessboard that he wants with the players moving, Timber and Partey are such a crucial piece of that. And I don't think I think that without them, we're seeing a game and an integration of Havertz that wasn't meant to be. I'm not saying he wasn't meant to play at the left 8, and we can have critique of if, we just don't think, I don't love seeing him in that position.
Yeah.
I not to make this about Havertz. I actually think that
No, I like this point.
There's the Luton goal, right? I mean, there's a recycle of the right-hand triangle. I could be mixing that up, whatever. There's a recycle on the right-hand side, and the ball comes back to Odegaard, and he plays a left-footed in-swinger to the back post. And I feel like that was Arteta must have been dreaming about that goal, because when we see Saka and Martinelli getting doubled on the side, that is how we beat that. And that, to me, is
the
something
Brentford
that
goal, right? You're talking about? Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's the Luton goal.
The Luton one as well, but I think that I see what you mean. Yeah, it was Zinchenko and Odegaard on the left that led to Declan Rice's goal.
Yeah, there's also a lot of times that Odegaard's in that right pod with Saka, and there's that I'm thinking that if we're going to put Havertz at left 8, he's going to play second striker, he's going to go hang out in the back post, overload the back bar, that we have to start playing that ball more. And I feel like there's a bit of a reluctance, and I see that we're not like we're not a cross heavy team. We have never been. There's a bit more tiki-taka, more passing, more control. But I feel like if we're going to put Havertz in the left 8, we're going to shove him as a second striker, put him back bar, then we have to start giving Saka and Martinelli some relief by actually playing that ball and being a threat with that kind of reverse pass. I know we got a little bit off topic, but as far as Havertz in the left 8, if he's going to do that, we have to play to his strengths in that way, because his strengths are not what Xhaka's were. They're not fast moving the ball. They're not, making those darting runs into the box. They are making that back post run, and we got to play that ball if we're going to play him there.
Yeah, and I think that you were leading towards it. You went on the right pod thing. I really think is a great point, but if Thomas Partey was available for us this season, we'd be seeing Partey and Rice in the middle, and it'd be Rice really doing what Xhaka was doing. I don't like templating, if you like, other players and what they did onto others, because I think players are, they're there in merit of their own qualities. But the Havertz thing, I think, he's been playing there as a result of Partey's absence more than anything else. I think that, yes, he probably would have played some games in midfield. He may have rotated with Odegaard a bit more. He may have rotated with Jesus a bit more. He may have come on as a sub and been more of an impactful player in games in which we need a different option up top. But for the most part, I think that actually Partey and Rice would have played together, because, Partey had his best available season last year with 30-plus games. Yes, I know that we can't necessarily rely on his availability, but last season indicated that he was supposed to be more available than we had become used to with Partey. And so that's what I think they banged on. Plus, Timber's absence as well has impacted things massively so. But Jordan, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for your comments. Spoke really, really well on those. And do you run a channel? Because you're very professionally well set up. So I'm assuming you might.
Yeah, I have a health and fitness podcast. So.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Give it a shout out, mate.
It's called Where Optimal Meets Practical. And so we just talk about things in health and fitness, not taking it all too seriously.
It's almost like that slogan goes alongside Arteta in some ways, actually. Where optimal meets practical. Because there's a lot of things that we would like Arsenal to do, practically, but what might be optimal in Arteta's own philosophy may not fit that design. So, yeah, that's really apt. Lovely stuff. Thank you, Jordan.
Thanks, Tom.
Much appreciate that, Jordan. Do make sure you go and check out his pod and give him plenty of love in the chat box. Fantastic stuff. Our potential final caller this evening is going to be Basha, who is an absolute legend for being so
potential final caller. I like that. Yeah.
If anyone else joins us, mate, I'm open to it, but I'm also conscious that dinner is being made at some point. So, and I would just like to say that not to say that dinner happens while I'm making pods. I've done 2 loads of washing today. I cleaned out the pantry. Yes, I have a pantry. I mean, that itself sounds so bad, doesn't it? A middle class thing ever. It's a cupboard where food is. That is all that it is, and it's tiny.
Okay, so Daniel, share.
It's always a pleasure to speak to you.
Likewise.
Tell me how you jumped onto this call in particular.
I was intrigued by the headline whether Edu should feel pressure, or I just want to start by saying every employee should feel pressured to perform up to the expected standard and to deliver as per the agreed on targets. So for me, he is under pressure. Same applies to Arteta, and to every employee should feel pressured to deliver. And I understand that we as a club had made the decision to use those two gentlemen, Edu and Arteta, in their first job. So there is a learning curve to be expected, definitely. The question becomes, and mistakes will happen on the different aspects of how we manage our club. The question should be, are we making the same mistakes, or are we learning from our mistakes and maybe making new ones? So that's also an interesting point for me. I totally agree with you when you say that Edu is responsible for making Arteta's vision come to life. Although I also like to think that there is some sort of a discussion that goes around those decisions. It's not just an Arteta call at the end of the day. And I wonder if Arteta is challenged enough by his team, whether it's Edu when it comes to squad construction or contracts or new players, or whether it's his tactical team, his coaching team when it comes to the tactical stuff. Because if I look at Edu, for example, are we still repeating some of our old mistakes? I'm afraid we are. I'll give you a very quick example. We left Nketiah, till the last month of his contract. We didn't sell him when we could have had some decent money for him. We left him for the last month of his contract, and we ended up probably overpaying him for a new contract. And guess what? A year or 2 years later, we do the same mistake with Nelson, with Reece. We leave him also to the last month of the contract, and we give him a contract. I'm not sure whether it's because we really want him or we didn't want to lose him for free.
Yeah,
so
I mean, if you sell Nketiah and Nelson, you're going to get pure profit because they're Hale End graduates. So
yes. So and which brings me to selling. I mean, you and all the callers have touched base on selling, so I'm not going to repeat what you guys have said. But my only worry is that when we look at our sellable assets, it's Ramsdale, Smith Rowe, Nketiah, and Reece, right? But guess what? Those 4 players are homegrown. You cannot get rid of all your 4 of your homegrown players in one shot. So that's not
to replace them.
So
and that's expensive.
Either replace him. Yeah. So in terms of Edu, again, let's cycle back to Edu. I worry about our contract management, as I gave you an example. I worry about our academy. And I blame Arteta partially because he is kind of reluctant to use youth or give them enough chances. But I also give him the benefit of the doubt is that maybe we don't have good enough players coming from the academy.
I think you hit the nail on the head.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
This is a point which I don't think actually gets spoken about enough. Like we see Saka, we see Smith Rowe, we see moaning about Nketiah and Nelson, ironically.
Yep.
Do we ever ask the question of maybe the kids aren't actually good enough?
Right, and the ones we have hopes on now are all 16 or 17 years old. So 4 years ago, when Edu and Arteta took over, they were like 13. So if our academy has not generated a single player over 4 years, then we have something to look at there, and this falls under Edu in my book. Yeah,
I think that selling is definitely going to be something that he will continue to be scrutinized on, for sure. I think that the youth side of things is an interesting one, because for him to be better at selling youth players, he's got to rely on his manager to give them more of a shop window. But
or we can better loan them out. We really suck at loaning out players also.
how would you say we could have loaned players better? Give me an example.
Examples, I mean, loaning them better at the right age, giving them a proper chance to shine, and either sell them, make some money, or bring them back. But majority of our players who go to who we loan out, I feel it's just a loan out because we're unable to sell them, and we never really end up getting any value of a player that we loaned out and came back.
Well,
Except
Balogun,
for
we got
Saliba.
35 million
Except
pounds
for
for him.
Saliba, of course, yeah.
Balogun, we got 35, 34
Yeah,
million pounds
of
for.
course. Yeah, Balogun and Saliba, yeah. But I see how
Sorry, go on.
Liverpool and Man City are loaning their players also. And if you check at the Championship, how many you'll find many players from our competition. Yeah.
Well, I mean, this season we have loaned. I'm looking at. We've loaned Marquinhos. He's since come back. We have loaned Runarsson, Okonkwo, Lokonga. We've loaned Grashik, Catalin Kurjan, Bandera, Mika Bireth, Charlie Patino, Brook Norton-Cuffy, Tyrese John-Jules, Salah Adine, Nathan Butler-Oyedeji, Omar Rekic, Alex Kirk, Keno Taylor-Hart.
Who of those are you expecting to get back for the first team squad the next year after this loan?
A completely fair question. I think you'd probably say Charlie Patino's got potential.
Probably, yeah.
But I would say, like, you brought up, obviously, Manchester City. How many of their loanees are we expecting to break into their first team on a regular basis in the coming seasons either?
The ones they sell for decent prices, yeah. So does Chelsea. So does Liverpool.
I think if you look at the amount of investment in the Manchester City youth system compared to the investment in the Arsenal youth system, you'd see a massive difference. You know, Man City, Clive pointed out to me, signed players from Manchester United's youth academy. You know.
And City have always the option to loaning out players to other City group clubs like Girona. They have a couple of guys on loan in Girona, and of course this helps also.
It's a great point. It's a great point. And they can sign players at those clubs as well, that Man City don't even have to sign them. Twack can sign them, or Lommel can sign them, or Girona can sign them, or they're, I think there's one in the Eredivisie as well, I think. But, they've got so many options. It's incredible the advantage that they have. Any final thoughts, Basher? Anything you think I haven't answered that you want to push?
No, I think we've covered it all, yeah.
It's always a pleasure to chat to you, mate. Always, genuinely. And I hope things are doing well for you.
Same for you. Thanks, brother.
Thanks, mate. Speak to you soon. Absolute legend, Basher. Always a pleasure to speak with him. We have got another caller because I bullied him into coming on the show. It's Damien. How you doing, Damien? Take yourself off mute and tell everyone that I bullied you into coming on.
Yeah, you absolutely did, Tom. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can, mate. Clear and crisp. How you doing?
Yeah, very well. Yourself?
Yeah, all good, mate. All good. So what is it about Edu that you saw the title and like, oh, I really wish I could have come on the show, and then were completely manipulated into doing so?
Well, basically, it frustrates me when it's the Edu out, Arteta out, all this sort of stuff. That when things are going well, people shut up and you don't hear anything. When things are not going as well, I'm not going to say badly because they're not going badly, but when things are not going as well, that's when all the voices come out. They don't actually take the time to sit there and actually look at where we were to where we are and who's played a part in that. Are things perfect? No. Are they ever going to be perfect? No. But it should be about perspective and about being a bit realistic about things and frankly growing up a bit and just processing thoughts.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you echo a lot of my thoughts that I've said. I think that where Arsenal are right now compared to last season is we aren't as competitive as we were last season. Is there
Mm.
reasons for that? Absolutely, there are. Liverpool are much better this season. We've lost our best midfielder, even though we've added another £100 million one that was available for most of last season. You know, the £38 million investment on Timber is
I
not
was going to say, yeah.
materialised. You know, it's frustrating. And also on top of that, we lost Jesus for periods. We lost Trossard. We lost Martinelli. We'd lost Vieira. We lost Smith Rowe. We even lost Ødegaard for certain games as well. Zinchenko's obviously been missing. Tomiyasu's been missing. We have had obviously absences this season, whilst having to deal with the fact that it's not just one title challenger we've got to deal with, it's two with Liverpool back this season. So, but what would you say if I know you've been listening to at least a portion of this, so you may have heard what I was talking to with Jordan about the legitimate
watching it, listening to it on the bus on the way home from work.
What would you say beyond maybe the criticisms I've already raised can be kind of finger pointed at, if you like?
I'm not sure there really is, Tim. I mean, for me, Edu's main issue is the whole selling side of it that you've already covered. You know, you look at what prices other teams get for players and you think, why can we not get better than what we're getting? Not necessarily get the same as what they're getting, but surely we can do better. You know, like you say, the most appalling piece of business we've done in recent years for me, as you were saying earlier, is the Leno situation. You know, how he can go for as cheap as what he is. And so I'm not sure there's anything new really to add, but it's just the fact that we do need to get better at selling. But in terms of what we're buying, there's been one or two misses. I'm not going to mention the obvious one that everyone brings up, but you go back to, you know, say Fabio Vieira, for example.
He's the other one,
you know, and obviously Edu and Arteta plan who they want in for each season. You know, they've probably already planned who they want to bring in the summer by now. And what you maybe have to ask is, you know, and I think you touched on this earlier, that Arteta is not the type of manager that's just going to take what he's given. He's going to have an opinion on who he wants, and he certainly wouldn't. He's not a first team coach that will just take a new player and be happy with it. You know, he will have to know who that player is, whether it's going to fit his system, and all that sort of stuff. And you look at some of the players that have come in, with say Vieira and the most obvious one, and you wonder whether Edu's actually challenging Arteta on any of this. You know, because you can look at it and say, how does that person fit into your system?
Yeah.
You know, do you not think we're better at going for somebody else? What we don't know is what them conversations are. And we don't know whether Edu has challenged Arteta on those. But at the same time, what we also don't know is what restrictions Edu might be given by the Cronkies as well.
Yeah. And obviously the rules of the league and UEFA as well obviously come into it. You said you didn't want to mention Havertz. I still think it's obviously a part of it's a big part of this season. I think that the Havertz deal is something that could be a sword that is fallen on in some ways, because if it doesn't work out in the long run, add that to Vieira, you've got £100 million worth of investment there that could have been spent better. You know,
I mean, Havertz alone, you look at what we could have got with that money, and this is where I'll come to the part about, does Edu challenge Arteta?
Yeah.
You know, because if Havertz was someone that Arteta wanted, if he's said to him, I want Kai Havertz, does Edu not look at that and say, well, these are the positions we're looking at strengthening. How do you think Havertz is better in that position than what the scouting team has already presented you? You know, and we everyone's crying out for a striker. You know, we need this person that can put in however many goals a season. We need a number 8, you know, or we need a holding midfield. Where does Kai Havertz fit into all of that as the best possible option?
Yeah, I honestly believe that he was brought in to be a different option for us as a forward player, and that the midfield usage of him is purely been stemmed from the unavailability of Thomas Partey.
Do you think that they already had eyes on David Raya?
Yeah,
before the Havertz, because obviously I'm going back to
we've had eyes on him for years. To be fair,
yeah, I mean, with Raya, obviously part of his success of his distribution at Brentford was launching the ball up to Ivan Toney, that tall target man that he can find. And when you see David Raya put them balls forward, a lot of the time he is aiming for Kai Havertz.
Yeah,
and you know, I just kind of think, was that part of the thought process that we want to bring David Raya in? We need a target person that he can aim for, and that's where Kai Havertz came from.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look at the lineup for the game against Man City in the Community Shield. I know Jesus wasn't available for that game, but it was obviously Ramsdale in goal because Raya hadn't signed yet. But it was White, Saliba, Gabriel, Timber, Rice, Partey, Erdegaard, Saka, Havertz, Martinelli. And, you know, I feel as though that team besides Raya, you know, is probably of Jesus and Havertz is probably, you know, some half dozen of the other. But I think that team is probably what Arteta envisioned to be our best 11 for the season, really.
And that's where we've been done in with Partey being injured for so much of the season.
And
Because,
Timber, obviously, as well.
Yeah, because I mean, from what we saw in the little we've actually seen of Timber, he looks like he's going to be an amazing player for us. But we've also not been able to benefit from having the Partey-Rice partnership in that centre of midfield, which would free up Rice to be able to make more of them marauding runs forward towards the box that he does every now and then.
Indeed. Damien, it's been a genuine pleasure. I'm glad you took the time to jump on.
No, thank you.
I hope you will again.
Yeah, definitely.
Thanks, mate. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Andrew, ta-da.
Thanks, Damien, for coming on. Much appreciate your time and all of our callers as well from today's show. It's been a pleasure to speak with more of you. I promised you would do a phone-in. I've delivered you that phone-in. So not that I didn't want to. I certainly did. And it's always a joy to speak with the listeners and put faces to names in so many cases. However, I do feel an element of regret. I feel like I shouldn't have talked about the pantry. The pantry was a terrible thing to bring up. I should explain. I feel like I'm going to have to send a picture of it to my Discord server now just to show you how pathetic it is. And I only say it that because the missus calls it that. Okay? And it's embedded in my vocabulary now as what that cupboard that includes a fair few tins of baked beans has become called the pantry. I don't live in some 15th century Victorian home with a butler. It's really, I don't. Trust me. I'm asking you to trust me. Oh, dearie me. But thank you for all of the kind words and the less kind ones in relation to that last quip. But I really appreciate your time. I'll be back tomorrow morning, of course, as always, bright and early at 8 a.m. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your evening, day, morning, wherever you happen to be in the world. And yes, indeed, I will speak to you then. Have a fantastic time. Stay safe, stay well, stay happy. And as always, up the Arsenal.